guys, we'll go ahead and get started here. So, welcome to our little open forum workshop here in the spring semester 2022. So this workshop is going to be here to talk about some of the changes that we've had for SoccerBot due to all the COVID restrictions and delays and things like that. So I'm going to put out some info, and then if you have any feedback, you can let me know. If you have any opinions or any ideas of what we could do, what we should do, then you can let me know, and then we can kind of feed that into the system so we can plan how we go forward. So to start it off, let's talk about what the previous project plans were. So our previous idea was obviously, this is the SoccerBot competition. We're going to have a competition. So the previous plan was have a competition set for the end of the semester, have kits dealt out so that way people can build their robots. And we have all of our instructional videos, so there's a baseline robot that people can build. And then if anybody wants to kind of modify that and go above that, they can do so as well. So that was the previous planning issue, or sorry, not the previous planning issues. That was the previous plan, and we've run into issues with that. I mean, obviously because of COVID, restrictions on in-person things, also restriction with supplies for parts and all those sorts of things. We're having issues there too, so our previous plans aren't looking too good. We're getting kind of hit from all sides. So let me talk about the kit order issues. So the original plan was we're going to have a standardized kit that you can buy for, let's say, like a discounted price on all those parts. You can buy that kit. It's all the things that kind of we need to provide to you so that you can build a Arduino powered kind of soccer playing robot car. The issue with that is we're having an issue finding the parts. Sourcing those parts and in the quantities that we would need is kind of an issue because there's part shortages everywhere. Even for kind of like smaller scale or bigger scale things, getting parts that work also is an issue too. So our issue with kit ordering is we might not be able to do that plan of we have a standardized kit, kind of like what OAC has. They have that car kit that you buy. It's got everything you need and you can use it. We want to do the same thing, but we're running into buying those kits. We want to try and mediate that in some way, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But the big issue here is the kit orders, because we've had to wait to order these parts, and then it's always like a mix of are these parts in or there's not enough parts, or how much do they cost? Because if they cost a crazy amount, then it's not kind of relative to buy them in any sort of sense. So let's say if we're paying $50 for like a kit chassis, that's kind of a problem when it's just a piece of plastic. So we've been trying to work out through that, and it's definitely a handful on how we're going to do it. So that is our kit ordering issues. So what me and Christopher talked about is we want to kind of readjust the priorities, because we've been waiting on these kits to give you info on like how to use a motor driver with Arduino, how to do, let's say, wireless communication with some Bluetooth. How would you create a flow of I take some inputs from this, and then I process that into movement data, and then push that out to the robot. We've been waiting on the kits, and to be honest, we're waiting too long. The kits are kind of giving us a headache, and we don't want to leave the project of like, oh, well, there was going to be info here, but since we wait on the parts, you never got the info. So our new priority is going to be to get you that content first. You may not have the parts from us in hand, but at the very least, you can see how it would be done. So like, for example, we have the motor driver. Your car is going to need, let's say the car would need 2 motors. And for those of you that have OAC, you know that it's got 2 motors on it. You have your motor driver. You may not have it with you, but we just want to teach you still how you could use it, because you also have the option, of course, to buy your own parts. And we'll talk about that a little later. So we want that content out there, and then we want to have the live workshops. So if you have any questions of like, oh, well, how does that actually work? We can clarify it there, instead of maybe, let's say, if we waited for kits and there's better availabilities, like let's say March, April. Well, if we have to get them in April, and let's say I want to do 1 workshop a week, like we could have around 5 workshops-ish. So that would be a month solid of, let's say, at least 1 workshop a week. And that might not be manageable. You're still in school, you're in college. So if you're going to be having issues with balancing the workshops and balancing your actual like school load, that might be a bit of an issue. So instead of just making all the VODs, providing them to you and say like, hey, the knowledge is there, we want to try and spread that out. So you do have the time to show up to either virtual workshops like what we're having right now, or possibly Christopher can do in-person workshops. So if there's anything you want to learn and get a little bit hands-on with maybe some parts we have extra, you can actually get hands-on and see it for yourself. So that is going to be our new first priority, is start having workshops so that ways you can get at least some knowledge. So that ways you know how to build a soccer bot. It's just unfortunately we don't have the parts or the issues, and we have the issues with in-person stuff, to actually get those parts down. This also is going to conflict with the competition. We're still not sure how that's going to work because, as we've all seen, COVID is very up and down. So, Cal Poly is going back to in-person stuff right now, and we would hope that that continues for the rest of the semester, but we don't know. It's one of those things of we don't really know how things are going to change, if things are going to stay the same. So we can schedule a competition, but then it might never come to fruition. So that's why we're kind of moving that back on the list of priorities. Now, given that doesn't mean that we won't have a competition, or like we can't have a competition. We might be able to still do something. But it is one of those things of, let's take away the focus of, hey, you're in SoccerBot. That means you're going to compete in our competition at the end of the year. Let's relax that and get it so, how about you learn how to make some Arduino-based cars? And then, if we can get that in, let's do those competitions. Because we were definitely trying to aim for a competition this year, but, things don't let up, and it's tough. So, hoping that we can remedy that, but we'll see what we can do. So, before I get into the future stuff, so we had those previous plans for SoccerBot, and it's tough. We have the kit order issue. The parts are hard to source, and if we source them, they're crazy expensive. And let's say SoccerBot can't be a thing that takes the whole club's money because we have other projects. You have like your T-shirts, you have even just the content. It has that worth to it. So we can't drain the bank on just like buying parts when you could say it's kind of like scalping. The parts can be scalped to where they know, let's say, oh, there's no motor drivers out there because the factories are running slow, or there's no deliveries. Sorry, I hit the microphone. No deliveries. So we just raise the price on those. So it's going to be unreasonable to make it that much. And then we wouldn't want to charge you, let's say, $50, $70 for a SoccerBot kit, because that stuff, you already paid membership. You do deserve something in return. So we have that. New first priority, let's get those workshops to you so at least we can talk, we can get you knowledge. Some of the things that I can talk about for the workshops are like 3D modeling, so at least that's something you can do virtually. You can go to the library or the iLab, do some 3D printing. We can talk about the hardware workshops and use like LEDs. So for one idea that I have that I want to implement is for those workshops to use your ZoomBot kit and LEDs. So let's say instead of having your motor driver chip, that's an actual chip, you would instead, like let's say, connect it to an LED. And then you can have all your wires in as if it was the motor driver. And you kind of can see what lights turn on depending on which pins you would be powering on the motor driver. So instead of, let's say, the motor turning, it's an LEDs turning on and off, that sort of thing. So I've got some plans for that to get a little knowledge. Now, as for future opportunities, I don't want to obviously shut down SoccerBot because there's still knowledge to be learned here, like what we're just talking about. We've got knowledge to share for how to build Arduino-based cars. But there can still be future opportunities. Christopher is now back on campus, so he's available to do stuff in person. Just in case, I haven't talked about it before if you're new to the project. I'm an alumni, so for me to go on campus, first off, I live very far away now. So it's a big drive. The other issue is for me to actually go on campus, I have to get a whole bunch of clearances. I mean, especially during COVID time. When it wasn't COVID time, there's a couple things. But now I really have to get clearances, and I might have to be even like escorted or things like that. So if I want to do official workshops, it might be a bit of an issue with what rules the school has for letting me on there. And it makes sense because COVID is an issue. They wouldn't want an outlier to the system, bringing COVID into the campus and causing an issue. So I can definitely understand that. So with Christopher there, we can now do some in-person stuff. So like I was saying before, maybe a little workshops to where he brings in a SoccerBot and you can see, oh, like these are what the motor drivers look like, or this is how he would do it. He can bring in some 3D printed pieces and you can see like something that he modeled, how it actually looks in person when you can see in detail like the print lines and how the structure is and things like that. Additionally, I don't want to rule out the ability to get parts for you because, like I said before, you paid membership. So you getting some stuff out of it is obviously a thing that you deserve. So if we don't provide a whole kit, like the whole kit of all the breadboards, like all the wires, certain things like that, maybe we can kind of work out something that's just like a Bluetooth chip, maybe the motor driver, and maybe like two motors and some wheels, something like that. A little more small scale that maybe kind of weighs in on if you have the ZoomBot kit. So if you have that kit, you can take your wires from there. You can grab your breadboard from there, um, kind of things like that. So hopefully we can get something to you like that. And also, this is open to kind of direct contact. So like, let's say um, some of the future opportunity here. You might want to buy all your parts yourself, and you can do that. That's why one of the future things I want to do for workshops is I want to have a part research workshop, kind of show you how I would look for parts, and technically how we would look for parts for the club. So that ways, if you want to buy them yourself, you can go to Amazon, you can go to other sellers like Banggood, AliExpress, and you can order your parts that way too. And you can kind of look around because the kits would be standard, so maybe you'd be okay with buying like a more expensive car kit. I know there was some people that reached out to me over the winter break that we kind of talked about car kits, and some people had some different car kits, so we kind of work with those. So maybe you can pick up another Arduino car kit, and then you can bring it to me and say like, "Hey, I found this one. How do I use this thing?" And then we can kind of work that out. So for kits, I want to have the option to where you can buy the parts yourself if you feel comfortable doing so, or if there's certain parts that maybe you'd be like, oh, I want to buy this, or if you have your ZoomBot kit and like, oh, I'm just missing the Bluetooth chip, we can work something out. Maybe we can order one of those for you, so that way you can get that, and then with your membership inclusion. So that's one of the future things I want to do for the kits. That's for sure. And then if you're making soccer bots kind of on your own, like for example, it's going to be blurry, but I've got this one right here. So I've had just kind of one soccer bot that I was working on for a while of kind of refreshing what I wanted to do for the content. If you kind of make one on your own, and we've got a couple people here that's like, hey, like I've made a soccer bot, we can still hold like an informal soccer bot competition. Me and Christopher in previous workshops talked about that, of having like practice competitions. So that way we would have like a set date of, oh, this day we're gonna have a practice competition. No reward stuff like that. Just people coming in playing soccer bot. I think we can still do that as long as the school allows anything on campus. That should still be possible. So keep in mind, if you do want to make a soccer bot, you should have the opportunity to kind of meet a few other people and play. Let's say it's a small scale little competition, that sort of thing. That I think is still reasonable. It's mainly just the grand plans that we had for SoccerBot is what's kind of getting slammed down by all the limitations we've had and the back orders. So let me think if there's any other points that I had there for future opportunities. And I guess I want to make it kind of a little bit more one-on-one in the sense of if you want to do some soccer bot, you can post in the channel and then we can reach out to you, or you can DM me or Christopher about like, hey, I do want to make a soccer bot, but I'm not really sure with these changes, like how that's going to work, and we can kind of work that out with you and help, so that way you can gain a little bit of knowledge. Because one thing about soccer bot is a good premise. It's a very good introductory way to do robotics because I mentioned a little bit of like a flow earlier, because you start with the flow of SoccerBot is you kind of take in inputs, you process those inputs, and then you generate outputs, which, it's kind of like all of robotics. But in this sense, it's very simple to where like, oh, I process two analog sticks, and then I go, okay, I have two analog sticks, then you process that into motor speed. And then lastly, you output motor speed to actual motors or something like that. So it's still a really good intro to that way of robotics thinking of what are my inputs, what are my outputs, what's going to be kind of the black box in the middle there. So Make sure I got nothing else. Questions? Okay. That pretty much covers all of the main talking points. Let me do a quick recap, and I'll truncate it so it's a little bit more clear. So, previous project plans, we wanted to have full-blown soccer bot competition, purchasable full soccer bot kits, um, have those practice competitions. COVID has come in, and it has ruined a lot of that. So that one of the main issues being kit orders, and one of the main issues that I want to talk to you guys about is because we did say we would provide kits, and we're not sure that we can do that at this point. But I still want to be able to help you either order parts or get you a few parts, just in case like you're missing some or you really need some help. Like even if like let's say you're strapped for cash, something like that, and be like, oh, I need this Bluetooth chip, but it's like this cost. Like what can I do? That sort of thing. We have run into those kit orders or what kit order issues, and it's really kind of bogged down the project as a whole. Because of that, new first priorities, I'm gonna start doing the content workshops and tutorials for SoccerBot. So that ways, at bare minimum, you've got the knowledge there. You can go back, reference it. Let's say over even summer break, if you want to see that content again, because you saw it here live and you'd be able to pick up some stuff during summer. You'll have some of that knowledge in the background. And I mean, if you're in like computer engineering, electrical engineering, some of these programming stuff, like the flow and also the way that we wire stuff, that'll be helpful for you too. So that's kind of a useful tool to have. Then future opportunities, things are not totally shut down. We've got good news. Things are coming back to in person. Christopher's on campus, so while I can't really be on campus, he's there to host like some in-person stuff. So if you want some in-person stuff, we can get that to you. Also, like kind of practice soccer bot competitions. You know, if you build some cars, we can just bring in a foosball, lay out a little area, and you can just kind of play some soccer, that sort of thing. So I think that's pretty much all of my talking points. So I'll open it up to some questions at this point. So do you guys have any questions about what I talked about? And I'll also ask about like any suggestions or clarifications. So do you have any questions about SoccerBot as a whole? Any concerns or clarifications do you need? If you have any of those and you want to use like let's say text chat, oh yeah, I see some type in there. Go ahead and drop it in that thread, and I'll go ahead and read it off here. Okay, yeah, perfect. You're just coming in for some news. That is totally fine. All right, yeah, no questions specifically. All good, no worries there. And I wanted to just
Oh, I have a
relay.
question.
Oh yes, go for it.
So if you can post it somewhere, the
Mm-hmm.
ideal shopping list, even though the price might be astronomical for a student, maybe we as students can still join forces and look around and price these things out, see what kind of other things we can come up with. Can you
Mm-hmm.
make that list available?
I can do that. Hold on. I will write this. I brought my notepad. Write it down. Give me a second. I can do that. I think that'll be a good idea. And you know what? If we do something like that, then I will for sure have that virtual workshop on like how I search online, and then I'll post kind of an Excel sheet with links to let's say things that I found. So that way, it'll be a shared document that everyone can look at. So if you want to go find those parts, they're there, and then maybe other people can kind of give like edits and things like that, like oh, found this cheaper, something like that. Yeah, I think that's a perfect idea. I like that. So I'll do kind of a like a parts list that is public. Yeah, that sounds good. That is a good idea, and that's something that we can do. But like you're saying, if people are willing to, shell out like, and I don't know if it would be $100. I'll just throw the number out there. But let's say if it was $100, and you're just like, oh, I would still want to build soccer cars anyway. You've got the opportunity, so yeah, for sure. That sounds good. We can do that. I'll incorporate that into our workshop.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, how much does the soccer ball used to cost
The soccer bot kits before. Oh boy.
before the whole COVID thing?
Let me see. Let me think about this. That was last time I would have placed a good order. 2019-ish. That let's say so what we did is you can order from Amazon or we can order from overseas sites like Banggood, AliExpress. Amazon, the orders as a whole were scary. They were like close to $800. So that's a huge number, and that's maybe for like 12 teams ish. Now for AliExpress, that would really go down to like let's say $200. The price difference was crazy, and that was let's say for everybody. So I think when I did the spreadsheeting, the cost per SoccerBot kit before COVID might have been like maybe $20. It might have been like $20 or $15 per SoccerBot. And then what I would do is back then every team was 2 SoccerBots. So what I would do for that is I'd say, hey, it's a $20 team deposit and you get 2 SoccerBots. So there was still some like membership savings kind of mixed in there. So that was you get the parts, you paid for a little bit of it, but you still had some of that discount. Nowadays, oh boy, the kit cost is maybe like I'm thinking back to my spreadsheet, maybe like 25 at least 30, and the issue with that is like the parts kind of go. So if I collect my spreadsheet, there is a chance that the parts change. So if there was a price of like the motor drivers at let's say like $1 each, when I go like, hey, can we get the order in? It's not the case anymore. Now they're different. So now I have to like recalculate the price and kind of check how that's going to be. So yeah, before COVID, I think you could build soccer bots around like $15 for like breadboard, wires, motor driver, motors, tires, a battery pack. Let's see, what else? What else did it have? Maybe even like a little piece of plastic so you can mount your stuff on there. It was definitely cheaper, and that was one of the appeals of SoccerBot before too. Was this is like some cheap robotics? Like you just get a couple little parts together and you can build something really cool with it. So yeah, it's tough. Now Amazon. Let's see, Amazon like right now, because I was thinking I talked about the overseas price. Amazon right now, it might have been maybe like per soccer bot, be like 30-ish, 30, 40. And another issue with that is a lot of the parts come in like multiples. So let's say for your soccer bot, you only need 1 breadboard, but you get 6. So you could get it like at a cheaper price, but it comes with 6. Given like breadboards are great to have, but let's say if you only want 1 breadboard because you're just doing soccer bot, then you got to buy the full 6 at the full 6 price. But like we got the suggestion before, maybe if some of you do band together and be like, hey, I'm gonna buy some breadboards off Amazon, like who wants to split it? That could work perfectly fine right there. So that's actually some good ideas. We'll definitely talk about that some more. So yeah, they were definitely cheaper. That's for sure. All right, any other questions, comments? We'll keep those coming in. We still got 3:35 right now, so you still got some workshop time. So I'm open to questions and discussions and all that. Let me see. That's good. Making sure that this is fine over here on my end. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I could talk about, or I can ask some targeted questions because I am curious. So, how do you guys feel about the part kit change? Because we did pitch it that we wanted to offer parts to you all, and we're kind of have to recall that and rework it, maybe eliminate it. Uh, I thought about kind of doing like a poll or like a survey of like how do you feel about this? Because I just want to gauge everyone's opinions in case if people are like, oh, it's totally fine, like we'll order our own parts. Or people are just like, no, I want my parts, that sort of thing. What is consensus? Okay, not fantastic, but as long as we know that as long as we know the parts, it's okay. Okay, that's good to keep in mind for sure, and we appreciate that because it is tough. For sure, we would want to have pre-built kits. Biggest hurdle for my team is part acquisition at the moment. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe we can kind of offset that. So maybe we can order like the Bluetooth chips, and then if other people can find this, be like, here, we'll provide you some Bluetooth chips. That was an issue before too. We've been trying to move to Bluetooth, and now we have the ability to do so. And then COVID's here, so I can't implement Bluetooth well because now all the parts are an issue. But previously, controllers were an issue. To where I used to buy controllers at maybe like $20 each for the controller and the receiver, and I guess we bought the rest of them because the year after that, the prices just took off, and we could not find them for anything reasonable. So in that sense of if there's like something that's a little bit less reasonable for you, maybe we can cover that. So you can kind of handle ordering some things, and then we handle ordering another. All right. So that's that question that I wanted to ask. Here's another one that I want to ask. How do you feel about the workshops? Because, like I said, I'm alumni. Getting to campus would be difficult and lots of little hurdles to jump. Still possibly could do it though in the future. But are you okay with virtual workshops for some of the content? Do you want them all to be in person? Do you want both? Maybe we can have them both in person and virtual depending on what you would want. And then in the sense of what the workshops would be. So let's say they would kind of be a hybrid. Some of the stuff is obviously maybe things you'd want to see in person, like motor drivers, because those are actual little chips that you'd have to see into a breadboard. But other ones like 3D printing, 3D printing and 3D modeling, maybe you would be good with the virtual workshop because like you can be at home, you can be wherever you are with your laptop, and then you can just kind of follow along, and you don't have to like set up in a classroom. Maybe you want to use your desktop, things like that. Programming as well, you're just going to need your laptop, so maybe you'd be good with a virtual workshop for that one. Prefer it over an in-person one. What's the feeling on workshops? You want it in the middle? You want both of them to have, let me rephrase. Do you want all of them to be in person because you want to get back to in person? Are you okay with them all being virtual? Do you want both? You want a mixture of the two? How do we feel about the workshops?
I would rather see them in person simply because I love to touch and feel it. I learn better that way. But if
Mm-hmm.
we can do the workshops online, that would be great because I can join in whatever time. I don't have to rush onto campus and be there.
Mm-hmm.
So workshops in any format would work for me.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. That sounds good. I'm also seeing the both in our thread here. Perfect. We'll keep that in mind then. Well, we'll keep the options open because I know I have seen some other people in other parts of the Discord talk about like in-person stuff and things like that. So I do want to make sure that it's not a like, and understandably so, for people like, no, we don't want online anymore. Get me out of here. I want to go back to in person. So okay, good to know that we can have both. Allows we can have things for the convenience of what we can do through online, and then also the hands-on aspect of being there in person. So perfect. I'll relay that to Christopher for sure. So Christopher will be in charge of the in-person stuff, and I'll be checking in with him to see how all that goes. And I might be able to like join with like a webcam or something. So all right, cool, nice. Thank you for the feedback on that one. Let's see, what was another question that I might have had, or and feel free to ask a question if you got one while I think. Other feedback that I want. Let me see. What else could I? These I should have wrote down. I was thinking of some in my head. I should have wrote down on my paper. Let's see. As for the competition, this is a question. Is it okay, let's say, for you to take away from the project just the learning aspect and the building aspect of a soccer bot? And in this idea, so you're okay with the main takeaway being, I learned how to make a Arduino car and I control it with my phone. Is that okay? Or are you feeling like you're missing out on the competition aspect? Like you joined because you wanted to have that competitive aspect to the project? Because that one I could see definitely going back and forth. So how do you feel about that one? Are you missing out on the competitive? So that was, we can keep that in. Okay. Settle for bragging rights, but I'll settle for building one first. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, that's one of those things of we have wanted to offer something that's kind of competitive, so that was you can kind of get the it's got a different feel to it. When you got that pressure of like, oh, okay, I'm trying to outsmart competition, things like that. So maybe we can still do something. I'll have to talk with Christopher to kind of keep that in. But any other opinions on that? You're cool with just making remote control cars, or you're just like, dang, I did want some competitive feel. Any other opinions on that one? Just a little, or it can also just be a little in the middle. In the middle. Okay, sounds good. We'll keep that in mind. We'll keep it in mind that there is still a little bit of a competitive itch. So maybe we can do something like that. It would be cool if we could provide that was in a previous year of like some sort of obstacle course for like let's say if it was a thing to where we couldn't do any sort of groups like it's like a one thing like all right the people stay back here one person enters like the obstacle course and then like your soccer bros kind of navigate an obstacle course that could be a thing depending on like the feedback we get and maybe we can see if we do something like that so yeah well I'll keep that in mind then that there's still a little bit of a competitive itch there.